Hello, welcome to my presentation. I'm Brittany Herrera, and this is Java programming and what we did in CIT 260. My team was Ralph Orchards and Casey Baldwin, and we worked on the Oregon Trail game. A little overview is I didn't have any experience with Java before I came here, and what I've learned is that when you're developing programs, you need to define, design, develop, test, and deploy. And those are the 5 steps when you're building a program. You also need to get a development environment, which we use NetBeans, and then you start making user stories and building UML models. And there's tools to build those models with as well. Once you get those user stories and make those models, we can start coding in NetBeans. And there's 3 layers that we do there. There's the model layer that manages the data, logic, and rules of the application. Then there's the control layer that's responsible for the actions. It contains functions or commands, and that gets executed by the end user. And then the view layer, it prompts and gets input and performs actions and determines and displays the next view. That's the basics of programming. That's how you go about building a game. So for our midterm, we talked about the things we learned in the first half of the semester. And in this presentation, we'll talk about the things that we learned on the last part of the semester. The first thing, this presentation, I'm going to talk about are static class variable versus class non-static instance. So what's the difference between static and non-static? Well, I use this website to get this, but a static variable is associated with the class as a whole rather than with specific instances of a class. Non-static variables take on unique values with each object instance. In this example here in the Oregon Trail.java class, we need to create like a new game and a new player, and those things are static, and basically static means that we can access outside of the class. So we need to have that new game and that new player go outside that. Here's another thing that we put static. It's the supplies view menu. So if we go to the shop, we still need to access the supply view, and putting it static made it something that we could do. Non-static would be something like in ferry crossing, we didn't need to have a menu that would go outside that class. It would be no use to put that inside the restaurant. We don't need to see what's going on in the ferry crossing at the restaurant. So we put that as non-static. Okay, the next thing that we want to talk about are arrays, array lists, and enums. On my presentation, I have different links and screenshots of websites I used. This one is good and has a lot of information. I'm just going to kind of skim through it. But basically, a major difference is that array list is, an array is fixed and an array list is a variable length. You can't change the length of an array once it's created, but an array list can resize itself. And also, you cannot store primitives in an array list. It can only contain objects, but an array can contain both primitives and objects. And here's the coding for an array versus an array list. You'll see in an array that you have square brackets, and in an array list, there's a little bit more coding, and it has the triangular brackets. Here's an example of array list in the game. The towns list, we didn't have all the towns, so that list was going to grow, and so we needed to have it in an array list. So for my demo, I need to escape this full view and go to game control, and I think it's item, inventoried item. So see here with the square brackets, it's an array. That list was made already. It's not going to change, and it's something that can be an object or primitive. And so we created that as an array because it was not going to change the amount. The length of that list wasn't going to change. Okay. An enum in Java is a type-like class or interface, and it can be used to define a set. So we thought this was cool. Basically, it's for constants, if there's things like months in a year or days in a week, this would be something you'd want to create an enum for. Here's an example in our game of item lists, how we created the enums. There are things that aren't going to change throughout the game, like if someone goes and wants bacon, that's what they're going to get for bacon, or that's what they're always going to get for crackers and things like that. So we liked the enum when we started learning about it. Okay, so the next thing on our list that we're going to talk about is for loops. This is a great website. Oracle has great information on for loops, but basically the for statement provides a compact way to iterate over a range of values. Programmers often refer to it as the for loop because the way at which it repeatedly loops until a particular condition is satisfied. So the general form of it would be for, initialization, termination, increment. That's kind of like a general form of it. And then down towards the bottom, you'll see for demo. And then you'll see like for int equals 1, and then I, and then you increment it. And if it's less than 11, you increment it. Okay, and then you put system printout. Basically, at the bottom here, you'll see that that's the output for that code. Here's some more information about for loops. And I'm going to demo through some for loops and how we use it with the arrays and the enums. Here's an example, though, before we do that. In our program from Get Bill, we needed to use the for loop to go through the items on the menu because there's different things there. So it's going to go through all those items and the quantity in order to get the exact amount that would return the total price. So that's how we use that one. All right, so I'm going to exit that again and go to the actors enum. And see here, we had to do another one. We already created these enums over here on the left, and we needed to go through the list of actors until something was selected. So that's why we created this for loop here, and that's how we calculated it. And another one is on the supplies view. We'll go to that. And in here, we need to get a report. So for that, we created for loops so that they could go through all the tool lists, all the values of tools in order to get the report for them. We wanted it to report. We wanted this for loop to work so we get the proper report. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about are exceptions. And this website really had a good explanation. Exceptions are conditions or problems that arise during the execution of a program. So what we're going to talk about runtime errors. They happen when the user maybe inputs the wrong thing or doesn't input enough. And here's an example of us throwing an exception, okay? So we need, for this example, to get the meal price, we need to make sure that they receive an error message so that we don't get an error and the game quits. Like we put, if the meal price is greater than the player's money, we need that error message because we don't want something to happen in the game. We want them to get that message so they can put the right information. If it doesn't have enough money, if the player doesn't have enough money, they can't get the meal, and then they just go forward from there. I'm going to exit again and do the item view, calculate cost. And here on the calculate cost, you'll see that it throws this item control exception. So we need to get something to prevent another error. In this case, we don't need a negative number. We need to enter the number of items. We don't need a negative. That would be bad. And then if we put the right number, then we go to the next thing, and we need the right cost. So then we put the correct cost. And then if both of those are done right, then we get the result and get the item cost. All right, so that comes to the next thing on our list, when to use character stream versus byte stream. And here's the website I used. In Java, characters are stored using Unicode conventions, and they're typically used for text files. and byte-oriented reads byte by byte, and they're used for things like binary files. So this is the way they explained it on this website, and I thought it was good. So character streams use reader writer, and byte streams use input stream and output stream. And the character is 16-bit, and the byte is 8 bits. And that was a good way to explain it. All right, so I'm going to demo a couple of things on how we did that. Game control. So get saved game. And so you see the input stream there. And the input stream there. And so then it has this message here. And then the other example was supplies view. Okay, so here we have to basically get the report print, report write, and this is the item that we got. We pulled that and the item list, and that's what comes up here. And so we're pulling from the item list, and that's in the enums over here on the left. Okay. I'm running out of time here, but here's some more examples that we used in our game for the save game method and the exiting game. I guess that concludes most of what we talked about. I'm going to jump into demoing the game that we created, which was totally fun. Here we go. All right, here we go. Let's enter my name. Start a new game. I'm going to go to the hotel because I worked on that. I'm going to go to the restaurant because I worked on that. And I'm going to get a room and get the bill. All right. Well, that's about it. We didn't get to implement the whole game, but it was a lot of fun doing that. I really enjoyed taking this class, and I really appreciate your example test. You're a great example of a hard worker, and hopefully I can take more classes and learn more about Java. Anyways, let me know if you'll have any questions. Thanks so much for everything. Bye.